time around in Author's Corner, Mursalin Machado joins us, and he's actually got two books that you really need to read, both of them. But we're talking about The Diary of Lady X, Song of the Sea. Man, he has traveled all over the place. He's one of the more interesting people that I've talked to, and we've had a couple of conversations off the air. So, Mursalin, thanks so much for joining us on the show, and tell us about the book.
Good morning, yes. Well, the book is in 2 volumes, and there are 4 books. The first book is in the first volume, and books 2, 3, and 4 in the second volume. And it's an ongoing story. And the first book helps to establish the personality of the main character from the beginning as he develops. I'll do a quick thing here. We're out of the book, a couple of pages, if you don't mind.
Sure,
in the introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, Tony, his main character's name is Tony. Tony had a passion for travel. What started out as an innocent pursuit for adventure took many turns through love, tragedy, and disillusionment, and awakened his sleeping soul, setting him on a path of aspiration. And so that a little bit about him. And in the beginning, I'll give you something which gets you more interested in the book itself. And basically, because the title is The Diary of Lady X, who was the lady? And here it is. She was a small ship that had sailed the biggest ocean in the world. She was an innocent of 20 and an actress. She was a gifted dancer, an artist of the striptease. She was a teenaged prostitute to keep her family from poverty. She was a mother and diplomat's wife in need of love. She was of the lowest caste and in love with a man of the highest caste. She was a woman of dignity looking to the education of others. She was lying half naked in a gutter in Calcutta, begging for money for her cremation. And she was a proud mother and still innocent. Most of all, she was a lady.
Wow. So that, talking about those characters, Lady X and talking about Tony, tell us how you came up with this story, because it mirrors so much of what happened in your life.
Well, yes, it's autobiographical, but I take a lot of artistic license because it involves many people, their stories, and many different places. It's basically his experiences as he travels through, and the story takes place over a period of perhaps 6 months. And it ends exactly where it starts, in San Francisco.
So in San Francisco, on a boat and traveling in those 6 months, and the character Tony, what he encounters, and is he surprised by what he encounters?
Yes. Well, he's amazed, and because he's learning, and he's basically a person who's the same kind of naivete as most people do when they start out doing something, and they gain as they go and grow as they go. But he's it's difficult to say. He's not overwhelmed. But he has dreams, and he has almost prophetic dreams, which help him to understand what's going on, because the different bad experiences that people are having. He gets involved with them and tries to help or does what he can, and yes. So let me see here.
So let's go into that. So you, it's like you said, the naiveness we all have when we start something out. He starts this out, and then he goes on these places. I mean, where does he go? He goes to India, right? What are some of the places?
Well, he first the ship, which the story begins with his introduction to the ship, and the story actually begins in 1941, and then quickly fast forwards to 1966 and 8. The ship is small. It was originally a submarine tender, and it was built in the San Francisco Bay, and is to go to Hawaii to join the Pacific Fleet in Pearl Harbor, and arrives the day before Pearl Harbor is attacked, and the ship is affected by the attack. But actually, the ship is attacked the day before, and that is kept a secret. But then the ship is put into the mothball fleet at the end of the war, and then is given to the U.S. Coast and Geodetic Survey to become a survey ship. And this is when Tony first sees the ship. The ship is taking on a new crew, and he joins the ship in San Francisco, and it sails to Hawaii to chart the ocean floor between Hawaii and Alaska. And he's out at sea for 3 weeks, and he's in Hawaii off for 1 week. It's like that, a week and then 3 weeks and so forth. And so while he's off in Hawaii, he's meeting these other people, and he gets involved with the dancer, who's actually a mulatto. This story is actually it's kind of racially mixed. It's not just a story about a white guy. It's a story about everybody. He has a buddy on the ship who's a black fellow, because he himself, Tony, is part American Indian. He's part Cherokee. He's part Portuguese. And he gets involved with the dancer in Hawaii, who's mulatto, and his black mate ends up with an Oriental girlfriend, and everything's just very natural and very normal. This is in the late '60s. But then he has encounters. He has difficulties with certain types of people. I don't want to go too much into the story.
Sure. You don't want to.
But I can tell you that. Yes, sorry.
You don't want to give it away. I understand that. So I want to make sure that people know where they know where to find it. We're speaking with Mursalin Machado, and the name of the book is The Diary of Lady X, Song of the Sea. And there's several volumes of this, as he mentioned, and talking about these exciting adventures on the ship, the people that he encounters. Just really, really fascinating stuff. What do you hope that people listening to this in the United States and around the world, because we have listeners in so many other places, what do you hope they take away from reading your book and your books?
Well, my purpose, the purpose of my writing, is to stimulate readers so that they can consider what something may be, that the limits that they think they see in their life are more imagined than real. It's basically just go out and do and follow. I want to say follow your feelings, because some of the feelings are bad, but you have to explore and not be restricted by those around you or whatever the rules are. Don't break the rules, but you have to follow your sort of inner guidance, which I think everyone has available. They might not be in touch with it.
But it's available for you. What was it like writing these books? What was it like putting this all down? It had to be like you went on the.
Well, I can tell you I can tell you when I started writing this, I was inspired to start the story by a poem that I had written, and it just evolved. So much of what takes place in the book, I had no idea it was going to happen that way, especially in the second book. So I started basing it on my own experiences, and then it just evolved and grew and grew. And as I traveled, because the second book was mostly written in India, and things that were happening there, which were unpredictable in health and society. But anyway, he goes on from Hawaii, and he leaves the ship and gets a job on a cargo ship. And he ends up going to the Orient. And after he gets off the ship in Bangkok, he starts traveling. He travels by air and by train, and he eventually gets across to India. And he has experiences along the way with people from other countries, a diplomat's wife from Russia. And in India, he ends up teaching in a school, which is kind of like getting ahead of the story a little bit, because he went to a friend of his was a student, and he went to to talk to a principal with the idea of getting some students to tutor. And she said, well, she didn't approve of men tutoring her girls. So she offered him a job teaching in the school, because she had an English teacher that she wanted to get rid of. He ended up teaching 6 periods a day. And that led to many other experiences. And then there was a war going on with Pakistan. He meets an artist who has a very interesting life, but has difficulties with his very rich father. Eventually, he winds up going back back to, I guess, on another ship, sails back across the Pacific, and things happen back in the States, and Long Beach, and San Francisco, and so forth. It goes on and on. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but I can tell you there's a lot going on, and
that's
I find myself that when I read it, every time I pick it up and start reading it, I just keep reading it. But you asked me about when I was writing it. When I was writing it, things would just come to me, and it was like I was just using my hand, but something else was doing it. It was amazing. It just sometimes it happens like that, and I'm sure other writers have that experience.
Yeah,
it's like at some point when you start writing, a portal opens, and things can come in, but they can come in from different places. They can come in from a dark place, a light place, and so forth. So it's extremely interesting, and that itself, just writing, is a growing experience.
Yeah, boy, and, that's the truth. It's a perfect place to end this, because you said you opened the portal, it came to you. The Diary of Lady X, Song of the Sea. There are several books. This is one of them. This is what we're talking about, and The Adventures of Tony. Incredible. Thank you, Mursalin, so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to be able to talk to you.
God knows what is hiding in those weak and drunken hearts. Guess he kissed the girls and made them cry, those hard-faced